So for our listeners that don't know, I'm vegan, and I've been vegan for going on 9 years, I think it is. And
How did you land on that? How did you end up there?
I was vegetarian before. I think I became vegetarian in 2008. So it's been now 15 years since I've eaten meat. And it was really just like my stomach didn't do well with dairy, and I was like, maybe I should try cutting this out and see how difficult it is. And I've been holding off on going vegan because like vegan cheeses suck. Most of them suck.
That's true. Yeah.
And I was a huge fan of cheese, but then they progressively got better. So it's not, I don't feel like I'm missing out as much anymore. Meat was,
I feel like I could go meatless. I'm closer to it because of the Impossible Burger.
right. Yeah. And like the substitute meat products have gotten also substantially better, which is great.
And less expensive. Yeah.
And
Anyway,
and less expensive.
you were telling a story. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So there is occasionally, you'll have, like in Sacramento, they do like the vegan chef challenge where they have a bunch of restaurants that sign on that aren't vegan, but they'll do like a vegan menu for a month or whatever. And they had advertised a vegan food festival at Southside Park for this weekend. So I was all excited. I bought tickets. It was like $10. And had been looking forward to it for weeks. It was on my calendar, and my wife and I drove down to the park and got there, and there was no one there. Like no food trucks, like nothing. Right. And so I was like, did I get the wrong park? So I pulled up the event, and on the event page, it had the same exact picture of the original event advertisement, except it said new date, and it was September 4th. And it's like, you can't.
3 months later?
Yeah, 3 months. Like, you can't just change the date and not send out an email to people or an update. And I went and checked my little virtual ticket, and the date on my ticket had changed as well, with like no warning.
Oh my God.
So I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's such bullshit. So I was all upset, pissed off, and we ended up getting brunch at Revolution Wine, which is a great restaurant.
Drink
but
it off.
I've heard that they are actually run by some not great people.
Oh,
I heard
bummer.
this. Yeah, I know. I heard this after the fact, and it was the fact that I guess the owner had been actively fighting against like the minimum wage increase in Sacramento. Which I'm like, come on, dude. I spent $57 on brunch. Like, you can afford to pay your people more.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of restaurants like that, with ownership like that. I have a similar story. Years ago, when I was with my ex-girlfriend, Shakira, her dad was really into the Scottish games out in Woodland. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's basically like Scottish air, it's like old timey stuff where you're like throwing logs and shit, and
Okay.
like, everyone's dressed up kind of old timey. I don't know what the name of that era.
It's like, so it's like Renaissance
That's
fair
it.
for
It's like Ren
Scottish
Fair
people?
type thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very much like a confluence of Ren Fair and just like Scottish celebration. People eating turkey legs and stuff. So we got up one morning. We were both really hungover at the time. And we were like, oh my God, we got to go all the way up to Woodland and like go to the Scottish games. And we drove out there and walked over, and it was just a massive empty field. And we're looking around like, what the hell? And then we just realized it was the following weekend. We were a week early. So that one's more our fault than yours, but there's like a great iconic picture of me standing in a very large field that she sent to her dad, just like looking hungover.
I think both of these instances further prove that the Scots and vegans are equally oppressed, marginalized groups that just get shit on by society. People planning events that you either show up early to by your own fault, or theirs,
or 3 months early by their fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we got a lot of show to do. Shall we?
Let's do it.
All right.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Oh, hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
You have Gabe.
And that's it.
That's it. It's a lonely episode.
It's a quiet one. No Shannon. Shannon is neck deep in work today and had to call a last minute audible. But I was like, I've done one-on-one episodes, I think, with everybody. And so it'll be fun to do one with the new host.
Woo.
So I'm excited for this, Gabe. Couple things, folks. Couple things to think about. Hey, well, first of all, we love the work we do. If you love the work we do, you should consider becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Go on down to patreon.com/voicesrivercity. There is patron-only content. We also have events that will be happening. Actually, the one that's coming up will be June 21st. I believe this one is patron-only. I'll let you know, but it's June 21st. It will be from 5 to 7 p.m. I'm not going to give out the location yet, just in case we land on patron only. But there is a hang coming up. So become a patron, help support us. There's a lot of really great work ahead, I think, with this show. And I guess that brings me to the second thing, which is the fact that summer break.
Woo! School's out.
Yeah. For those of you who pay attention to this, and you probably don't pay that much close attention, we have every year a summer and winter break. It usually coincides somewhat along the lines of how the local city council board of soups are meeting. So this is our last ep until later this summer. We'll probably return mid to late July. Keep an eye out on that. And yeah, hopefully nothing happens. I bet there will be no news.
None. Nothing ever exciting happens during the summer. I feel people have to like hide from the sun. So they just like stay indoors.
Yeah.
Potentially go to the river, and nothing ever exciting happens at the river. So
no, right. Yeah. No, there's no rising temperature in this city and country right now. I think we're fine. It'll be fine.
I mean, surprisingly for Sacramento, this has been an incredibly moderate June. I feel like we're really lucky, and we haven't hit the surface of the sun temperatures yet, which I'm like holding my breath for. And, New York is getting what we usually get at this time of the year, which is like, poison air from massive fires and heat waves. But I'm crossing my fingers that this holds. Just like a couple more weeks. Weird. Yeah,
I actually don't like it. Like it rained a few days ago.
Yeah.
Like the last few days, it never rains in June out here. I've been here 10 years, and ever since I moved out here, it's been perpetual drought.
Yeah,
this is the first year that has it feels almost like we're getting as much precipitation as we did in the Midwest, but back when I lived in Wisconsin. Super bizarre. And then on top of all of this deluge of rain and then snow up in the Sierras, we can't even have river days yet because the rivers are way too high and the water is way too cold. And so it's too dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in San Diego, so like June is primarily the month where you get really kind of like shitty weather. Just call it June gloom, and it's always kind of cloudy and like not great. So this definitely reminds me of home, and I'm not mad at it. I know that the heat is coming, and I know the like feeling of sunny days on, never ending sunny days is right around the corner. So I'm trying to like hold on to this interesting mid-season feeling. We'll see.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy it. I love the heat. I love like a really dry.
Oh, you and
summer.
Skylar, you guys are, it's weird.
Does he too? I feel like, yeah. Oh, good.
Yes.
Good. I have an ally in this. I believe that Sacramento has better weather than San Francisco. I will die on that hill.
For having lived in San Francisco for 10 years, I can at least agree with the fact that it's not good. Like, it's not good weather.
I've never had somebody so amenable to this.
I wouldn't say that it's better. I think that they both have their detractors. They both have, things that I do like about them. I do enjoy fog. I like foggy weather. And also I will say that San Francisco's weather is a huge deterrent for allergies. So that is a bonus.
That is nice. Because Sacramento is the polar opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna be a nice summer break. I'm really excited for it. Obviously I'm helping out with Dr. Flo's campaign. So just, before the summer break, wanted to remind people about that. There are things you can do to help this people-powered campaign. We have some really good momentum. We've been doing some really good fundraising. We wanna really knock it out of the park before the June 30th deadline. Because the June 30th deadline is important because it's the first deadline of reporting the funds you bring in a campaign. And so as journalists, we, are always looking at filings, and how much money a campaign brings in is a huge indicator for that journalist on if they should read that campaign as serious or not. So we want to make a statement with this. So folks, if you haven't contributed yet, please contribute at flowformayor.com/donate. What I recommend is think of an amount that, as you're writing that check or as you're filling in the little, thing on your computer, you're swearing under your breath. You're feeling a little uncomfortable about how much you're sending in. But also know that this is for a really important campaign. But then again, also folks, if you are low income, every little bit helps, I want it to be like, and we all do on this campaign. We want this to have a Bernie feel to it. So remember that $27, average contribution, that's really cool. So if you can only contribute $5, do it. $10, do it. Make it recurring, because, if you want to do that, every week, every month, whatever, because to us, then that's money that we know is coming, and that helps us plan out the work that we're doing. So all that is to say, please contribute. And if you can't, there are things you can do. You can volunteer. Again, go to the website, sign up as a volunteer. We are starting up knocking on doors very soon. We're going to be doing a very small knock on doors, I believe, next week. I'm really excited about. But then soon after that, we're going to start rolling out the ones for the Army of Volunteers. So we get out there, get the word out on Dr. Flo. I'm really excited about it. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, what did they say about engagement rings? It's like your 3-month salary. So just use that as a bar of measurement.
There you go. Yes.
A reoccurring 3-month salary donation.
Oh, that's funny. I never heard that about engagement rings.
I mean, don't ever follow that. If you marry someone who requires a 3-month salary worth engagement ring, you shouldn't marry that person.
You're making a bad, you're not you might not be marrying a socialist.
Yeah, financially unwise.
Yeah. Or a champagne socialist, possibly.
That's true.
Speaking of which, I didn't dress up just for you, Gabe. I'm going to a fundraiser event for Flo at a wine bar up in Del Paso Heights, actually. Black-owned business. I think it's called, what is it called? Tap, maybe? Something like that. It's only open Thursday through, I want to say Sunday, but it looks really cool. 6 through 10. I'm excited to go check it out tonight.
But they're open today because today's Wednesday.
Today's Thursday. It's a private celebration.
Okay. Nice.
It's basically like, we're doing these house party fundraisers. So it's kind of like that. Oh, folks, if you want to host a house party fundraiser, you can do that too. Go to the website, flowformayor.com, and you'll find that. That's a really cool way to A, raise money for Flo, and B, hang out with friends and family and show them who this really cool candidate is, this person that you've gotten to know over the years through this show. So definitely do something like that. That's all. Wow, this is a lot of housekeeping this episode.
I mean, I think it's fine, especially since we're, this is the last episode for the summer break. Got things to catch people up on. They're going to be missing our voices. Our voices.
You know, the it even I listened to that Nazi guy Ryan Massano on a Nazi TV show or a Nazi, you know, webcast on Sunday that he went on. It sounds like even he's taking a break. He's claiming that he's doing a strategic retreat. So I think that means he's a scared little bitch.
That's right.
Nice to see. Yeah, it's good to see that we ran his zealot ass out of town. So yeah, let's get started. We have I think a pretty interesting show today. A couple interesting things have been happening in Sacramento lately, but I think it's also true that you could argue this city in a lot of ways has been a sort of a lightning rod for a lot of culture wars over recent years, it being the capital of liberal California, right? That conservatives despise our state, and you know, this capital actually is the symbol of that, although much less so than, in my opinion, than like a couple other cities. But a lot happens here, I think, as far as culture wars go. So we saw this piece in the Bee written by, I don't know this author actually. And I don't have the article up. Do you have
Matthew Miranda? No. We're talking about the other one.
The opinion piece.
The opinion piece. I'm sorry. It is. It was written by Tom Philp.
So it's like Philip, but he's missing an I.
An I. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no I in Philip. I'm just kidding. There's two.
Sorry, now I want to find it because I just want to make sure I have it.
Yeah.
So he wrote a piece called Migrants and Drag Queens, Sacramento as the Epicenter of America's Culture War. We're using his piece as sort of a framework for our discussion today. Obviously, he wrote a couple things in here that I don't think we agreed with, but you know, there are these two major issues and major storylines that we've seen have significant occurrences take place here within the city limits. The first one being this migrant situation where Florida Governor Ron Desantis, who is trying to go up against, he's trying to out-Trump Donald Trump in his run for the presidency, sent a bunch of mostly Venezuelan migrants to California on a plane from Texas, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Can you give us the background on that?
Yeah, I mean, so essentially, and I think that's one of like the interesting points is the coordination between like Abbott and DeSantis when it comes to their cruelty. You know, it's like these migrants aren't in Florida, right? They were in Texas. They came
Abbott's
across
the governor of Texas, right?
Correct. Yeah. So they came across the border into Texas, and then were approached by some third-party contracted entity, which I'm like, when I hear things like that, I think of like Blackwater in Iraq, you know, some like third-party group of vigilantes. But they make them sound like they're some administrative organization. Approach these migrants and convince them, as the article says, to willingly come to California. So the first group, I think, was 16 people last Tuesday, and then an additional 20 on Friday, were then put on a plane and flown to California, to Sacramento, and essentially dropped off because they were promised access to, you know, jobs, to resources, et cetera. And they were
told there was a whole program waiting for them.
Right. Essentially, yeah. And I think, you know, on top of that, I mean, this has happened now, God, probably about a dozen times. You know, they had the situation with Martha's Vineyard, also in California in previous months as this happened. But they are manipulating people, obviously, in a political game. You know, this is a way, like you said, for them to throw their continued ire at California, and try, I think, to try to like show that like liberal California isn't as progressive as they say they are, because we're gonna dump immigrants at your doorstep and see how you like it, and then
see
when
what you
like,
do with them.
yeah, and then if you treat them poorly, then we can say like see, or force your hand, because we also understand that our political actors are not but benevolent human beings, right? They do things because it's politically expedient for them to do it. So I'm sure that if they were if they were acting under their own desires, they probably would send these people back, right? But they're forced to make a political stance, and Governor Newsom and Mayor Steinberg came out and made public responses about how we were going to step up, right? Sacramento was going to step up. They were going to facilitate the transition for these folks into our society, hook them up with Catholic Charities, which does a lot of great work. And I think that the Catholic thing will be touched on in a second as well, in a different story, and try to ensure that these people had clothing, food, just a cell phone so that they can contact their family, if they're living somewhere else inside the nation, and figure out how to help them. And there's a lot of things that I want to say about this. And I think one in particular is that the immediate backlash that these types of stories get, you'll often see it in particular from people on the right, that like, we can't help migrants because we don't have the resources to take care of our own people. That's like their favorite talking point. But of course, if you actually were to push for any policies that actually take care of our people, they wouldn't support that anyways. No.
And also, why are they here? Our country has had economic sanctions on Venezuela for pushing 16 years now. It's crushed their economy. And so people feel the need to try and find a place where they can find economic success and feed their family back home, sending remittances back. Like, this is a tale as old as time.
Absolutely. And then the other general response that you get, which is more often than not from the liberal side, is that these people are here for the American dream, and we need to show them that we can provide that.
Right.
And that is obviously dismissing what you just said, right? Like, it's dismissive of the fact that like these people aren't coming here because they're looking for some American dream. They're coming here because for most of the time, their countries have been economically destabilized by the United States and its policies.
And that
right?
means Republicans and Democrats.
Absolutely. Right.
This happened under Obama as well.
Yeah. So they are unable to take responsibility for the actions that our empire has taken against these people, their countries, their governments, and they try to frame it in this, these people are looking for a better life and this other side is trying to deprive it of them. And it's like, no, like you said, both sides have been depriving them of this. They have made it so that it is, near impossible in many situations for people to live having all of their needs met in their country of origin, in their home, so that they have to flee, either due to violence or economic instability, for opportunities. And those opportunities, I mean, like, they're not here. I mean, for a lot of people, they're also not here, but it is in certain situations, this is where they know that they can at least make some money to send back to their family and try to rebuild their lives. And it's wild how, in particular, this article really focused on DeSantis's spokespeople saying like, these people willingly came over. Like, we had either verbal or written agreement from these people, as if like a government, or these weren't government, it was a third-party contractual entity, right? These people approaching
funded by the Heritage Foundation or something. Right,
shit. Yeah. And it's like, imagine if you just came into a new country, and you were fleeing your own, and you were approached by people who appeared official, and given a piece of paper and saying, well, we're going to move you over to this place. Do you accept? You're not going to say no. These people are are potentially terrified. They might be confused. I mean, who knows that the people were even presenting this information just at their spoken language? Like, there's so many factors.
But if I'm told opportunity, job, housing, California, I'd be like, oh, you know, these are all the things I came here for. Yeah. Like, if you can help me with that, absolutely. But as it turns out, this was, you know, it's a, like, they're being used as pieces in a political game that is a result, or it's an effect of this massive culture war that we've had going on for ages and ages in this country. And it's been aimed at migrants for, I guess, as long as there's been a country, right? But one thing I've got many positive and many negative things to say about the Democrats in California. One thing I like about Sacramento, though, one thing I like about this place, and like, I think you're right. I think a lot of these politicians land on their positions because of political expediency. They check the temperature, but, you know, perhaps to the credit of the people of Sacramento, we don't care. We do welcome folks in. We are very much possibly the most migrant/refugee welcoming city in the country. And we wear it. We just fucking wear it. And that's really cool to me. I don't see, so you know, obviously with our campaign, you know, a friend was asking, you know, so where are the different candidates going to land on immigration? And our response, those of us who've lived here for a while, was like, no one, this town prides itself on that. We don't turn people away, and there will be no sunlight among probably any of these candidates. Like, it's, yes, bring them in. Yes, we'll figure something out. We'll find them homes. So I do think that's really cool about this town.
Yeah. And I do think that a lot of that has come over time, with there also being really, really prominent and very efficient organizations that have handled, you know, incoming migrant communities and refugees, that I think have been able to, with their success, create that pressure on our political figures, so that they're able to see that not only, you know, are there organizations that can effectively help these people, but it's overwhelmingly supported by the people of Sacramento. So that if our political figures don't, you know, come out on that side, then they know that they know that they could lose, you know, political points for that. And I think that that's important. You know, it's like, if you truly believe in a representative democracy, your representatives should push their own feelings aside for the will of the people that they're meant to represent. So,
yeah. So credit to this town. You know, what are some of the organizations, you know, in this certain situation, particularly, we have Sacramento area congregations coming together to help folks out. Those are some real ones. They stood alongside us progressives in the fight against Measure O. They've done a lot of really great work. I also know NorCal Resist. There are some real ones. They've done so much with folks from Ukraine, from I believe Afghanistan, like from all over, just helping them with paperwork, hooking them up with the things that will help them thrive and just survive out here, right? Because it's got to be terrifying to come out here. Were you thinking of any other nonprofit supports?
There's one that's predominantly behind the push for Safety Net for All, and I'm blanking on their name, but they're an organization in the Sacramento area that has really done a tremendous amount of work for you know, agricultural migrant workers, undocumented migrant workers, those that oftentimes travel back and forth between their home country and the Central Valley, and really worked to not only advocate for their rights, but for their place in our community.
Yeah. And then I had a negative thing to say about California Democrats.
Just one.
For now. When I look at this story, and when I see the outrage from, you know, our mayor Darrell Steinberg, the outrage from our governor Gavin Newsom, say, using the big words, right? We're gonna, this is a crime, this is human trafficking, like we're gonna press charges against Governor DeSantis. And then using language of, these people are being used as pawns. These are very, very vulnerable people. And how dare you, sir? And then I think about how, and this is a very, very well reported storyline all over California. Municipalities, cities, liberal cities have been, for at least a decade, taking unhoused people, giving them a bus ticket, and shipping them to other cities because they don't want to deal with the problem themselves. And they are doing precisely the same thing. The only difference is, like, Republicans view undocumented immigrants as nothing, as less than human, right? Democrats do not, ostensibly, but they do view our unhoused population in the exact same, through the exact same lens. And that's been a rough one for me to try to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, there's a very fine line between those two groups. In a lot of situations, you'll have, if a migrant community gets to the US and they are unable to secure the resources that they need, then they very quickly can become part of the unhoused population. And then all of a sudden the empathy that is provided to them dissipates,
Yes.
And I think it's important to bring up that this happening and DeSantis being behind it comes at the on the coattails of a really draconian anti-immigration law that was just passed in Florida at the beginning of this month, which was SB 1718, which essentially made it, in many situations, a felony for anyone to be caught with an undocumented individual. Like, you could be driving with someone who's undocumented and potentially be convicted of a felony. It also made it so that hospitals are now required to ask about citizenship status before they render aid, which is unreal.
That is so backward.
It's incredibly backwards, and a lot of the organizations,
and it flies in the face of the Hippocratic Oath. 100%, it's so wrong.
100%, yeah. It's inhumane. It's draconian. It's come up with a myriad of other adjectives to use, and a lot of the organizations that we mentioned earlier, kind of in solidarity with immigrants in Florida, held a little picnic at the Capitol last week. And there was a push for a nationwide boycott of all goods coming out of Florida until this law was repealed. And I'm sure that there's probably a pretty good a chance of someone pushing this, to the Supreme Court. It's absolutely unconstitutional. And I think that we're going to continue to see a lot of these, not only policies and these measures being taken in these states like Texas and Florida, and other political theatrical bullshit like shipping migrants to other states to try to score political points with their most lunatic voting base members. But I think that when we talked before the show about how we wanted to frame this, and I think that the culture war, at least from my perspective, has always been kind of this. It's like a Cold War, like in the sense of how we talk about it. It's like it isn't always. It's never seen as serious, right? It's like, oh, it's this culture war bullshit. But like, the culture war in the United States is very, very real victims. And it cannot be dismissed as something as that can be ignored or pushed to the side and not like, I don't want to deal with that culture war bullshit. It's like, well, the culture war bullshit is in your face. It's right here. It's really affecting people. It's absolutely harming people.
It bleeds into our material conditions, and it bleeds into our our day-to-day life, our very violent society that we live in the United States, that results in harm and death. And yeah.
Um,
You know,
and
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say that I think that it is a good transition into the other part of this that we
Yes.
wanted to talk about, and I'll let you kind of give a background to that.
Sure. So, as we know, we've discussed, gosh, I think at least a couple times in recent weeks, sort of some of the attacks on our trans community over time. Obviously, we've seen a lot on the far right of really stoking up, not even the far right. I mean, it's the right in our country. This is something that's been mainstreamed into the Republican Party. But before that, I mean, this was white nationalists. It was the Proud Boys. Those were the ones going down to drag queen story hours and trying to shut it down and trying to intimidate and hurt people. And it's reaching sort of a fever pitch, right? I mean, you're seeing Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter, going off with with anti-trans hatred, right? Like, you know what? Like, the right has sort of retreated from the culture war of gay marriage. They've admitted defeat there. And before gay marriage, it was, civil rights, on race issues. They're always trying to find something and someone to blame for things, to blame for, our ire. And before gay marriage, when they were fighting to not allow, gay folks to have rights, what were they doing? They were doing exactly what we're seeing them do with trans folks. They were saying, well, I need to protect my kids. They're predators. If you're homosexual, you must be a predator, right? And it worked for a time. They got their majority of the population, enough on their side that they would win an election or two. But ultimately they did lose, and they lost a lot of the gay and lesbian community. Now we are seeing them do this with the trans community, right? Trans folks, with drag queens, who aren't necessarily trans, and they are being labeled once more as predators, as groomers, as, just for, if you're dressed in drag and reading a book to my kid, like, apparently you're a groomer, right? Anyway, I think I'm getting a little tangential here, but centrally what we're discussing here is these culture wars and how they are coming home in a place like Sacramento. I think the trans community is a lot safer here than in other places. We saw at the the recent businesses holding trans story hours, drag queen story hours, which I wish you guys would start that up again. The community would definitely come out and support you. And if not them, I get it. It gets tiring. Someone else, please keep doing it. The community will support you. People do come out and fight them. It is scary though, right? I mean, there are Proud Boys running at the crowd, trying to beat people up. There's a literal white supremacist on the corner doing the Nazi salute. But we are seeing this sort of this kind of rise in temperature. Just this week, the Democrats welcomed a drag queen to the state capitol by the name of, what was her name?
Sister Roma.
And she is with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, that being sort of a facetious name, for obviously like a group of nuns, right? But who indulge, who are not afraid of taking part in some Dionysian things. And so the Democrats invited this drag queen in to sort of just celebrate her and celebrate trans rights. It is the beginning of Pride Month, and California Republicans were appalled. And on the first day of California Pride, wrote this letter saying that they were offended that she was being recognized, and that they were not okay with her coming in. And I believe when she did come in to be recognized by the legislature, Republicans who were in the room stood up and walked out the door. So this is kind of the other side of that culture war. We are the liberal bastion. What's your take on this?
I mean, I think what's the opinion piece, like you said, it had there was a lot of issues that I had. And one of the issues primarily that I had with it was that there was a lot of horseshoe comparison. Like both these sides are equally as bad. They do what they can to piss each other off. However, one side is just existing who they are, and that's what pisses the other side off. They want to be able to live. Right. And the other side are the people who have power and are able to wield that power to systematically deprive the other group of their rights and their ability to exist. So they're not comparable. And I want people to really make sure that they stop comparing these sides. Like when kerfuffles happen between them, stop doing the both sides bullshit. Like, we cannot do that. It's obnoxious, and it's also disingenuous. The other thing that I thought was interesting was that the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence started as a group in 1979. And then, according to this opinion piece, and I didn't fact check it, so I could be wrong, or he could be wrong. Some of the most or the accusations against priests in the Catholic Church really kind of hit a running pace in 1982. And then since then, a lot of the curtain has been pulled off, and we've seen, essentially just never-ending accusations against priests in the Catholic Church in particular. But it's not just that particular sect of Christianity in which it happens. And I think what's interesting about this is that, like, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence is kind of poking fun, obviously, at like Catholic pomp and circumstance, to for lack of a better term.
Right.
But what was fascinating was that, like, in this article, they weren't talking about how despicable, it is that the Catholic Church had been able to get away with, and still does to a very large extent, with being able to push actual, sexual assault and molestation of children under the rug, and then turn around and accuse this other group, which is a group of drag queens, of being pedophiles and groomers for nothing else other than them just being them. There's no proof, there's no evidence. There's as far as I know, not a single case of a single drag queen ever sexually assaulting or molesting a child. But for some reason, the crosshairs are on them, and they're offensive because they're, essentially dressed up as nuns. And in
right,
one of the Republican legislators said, if they had done this dressed up as Jews or Muslims, would you have allowed it? And I don't think so. And it's like,
why not?
Yeah. And also, like, do you have the same kind of history of the Catholic Church
exactly
covering up molestation charges?
No.
Like, no. And on top of it, do you have the same history as the Catholic Church inflicting violence and genocide on the planet? No. It's like that.
And are you punching up or punching down in a country like this with something like, the Jewish faith or Islam?
Right.
You're punching down. Like, with Catholics, you're punching up.
100%. And I mean, like, unless you're the Klan, then that's it's for that. Yeah. But like, I think, and you, when we're talking about these culture war issues, I think that there can often be a tendency, even among the left, to kind of be like class reductionist, in the sense that they want to dismiss these things as being like in the minutia, that we don't need to bog ourselves down with these issues that only impact a very small percentage of the population.
Right.
And obviously I think that is a mistake. That's an incorrect analysis of the situation. Like these people, the LGBTQ plus community, are often being used as the battering ram for these people, right? Like that is the tool that they're using to push through their agenda, which has many other barbs to it, right? It's just that they're happening to use them as the spearhead to push through. And we can't ignore that. You can't dismiss how they're using these people to push their political agenda. I mean, you can turn on mainstream media and every single prominent station they're talking about these issues. And are there a lot of other important issues to be talking about? Of course. Are there more important issues? When you start getting into that realm, I think is when the left can often make some very serious missteps and be on the wrong side of history, when they start doing these judgment calls of what is a more important issue or what isn't a more important issue. If there are people in our community who are suffering at the hands of right-wing tyrant fascistic pieces of shit, we need to address that and take it seriously and defend those people. And I just think that that's an important point to make.
Which, and we do see that a lot with a lot of leftists. But I don't think it should be that hard for them, like Gramsci, right? It's like culture wars are important. Culture is important. He wrote about, we're talking about a lot of fucking Italians. He talks a lot about how in a culturally diverse society, there is a ruling class that sort of dominates and creates this sort of cultural hegemony. Yeah. And so like, this is part of the fight. It's all part of the fight. And like, it's okay. And it's not a fucking waste of time. Like you're helping save people's lives by partaking in this. It is that important, I think. You were talking about, you said they started the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. It started in 72? 79. Okay. Because when I look at them and like the whole, their sort of play on the pomp of the Catholic Church and like the show of it all, it reminded me of that scene in Fellini's Roma of there's this like very elaborate fashion show put on by the Catholic Church, and so her name being Sister Roma, the drag queen who came down to Sacramento to be recognized. I thought that was really cool, and I can definitely see the correlates there. Is there anything else we want to go ahead?
I mean, I do think it's also, obviously there's a lot of people who make this point, and I will reiterate it because I do think that it's the left of always being accused of being like snowflakes and needing safe space, and it's just so fascinating that the political side that consistently kind of upholds how thick their skin is, are like the biggest fucking crybabies about everything. The whole, like, the left can't take a joke, like the left doesn't that they want to cancel everyone because of jokes that they find offensive. It's like, bro, look in the mirror, my dude. Like, look in the fucking mirror. Like, you are the most just fragile children. They just like, if you're complaining about our side not being able to take a joke, like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, you also have a very bad sense of humor.
I just love the idea of the Catholic Church being like, oh, our sensibilities, like, fuck off, maybe. Like, no one cares.
Yeah. Look how your sensibilities have shaped the world.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we should all reevaluate them.
We could end hunger with like one room of the Vatican,
right?
Yeah. But your feelings. Yeah. Is there anything else we want to talk? Like, I don't know. what are some other elements of the culture war? Is there anything else we're missing here? I was trying to think of that before we started recording.
I mean, I think that one of the predominant features of the culture war is bombardment, and that it is meant to be so overwhelming. I know that you and I have talked about this before, and you have found a home and a community on Twitter, one that I have not been able to find. I've ventured in and out of that application probably since Occupy. I think I first got a Twitter account during the Occupy movement, 2009, 2010, to try to keep up to date with what was going on in Oakland and San Francisco. But I opened that application probably about once a day, and I go through it, and to me, it represents the cesspool of culture war. Like when
yes, my home.
Yeah,
Twitter.
The cesspool of culture. It very quickly becomes overwhelming for me, and I get why both sides can become frustrated when that's all they see are these culture war issues, and they want it. And a lot of people on both sides are like, can't we just fucking, like talk about the issues? Like the economy's in the tank. No one's got fucking jobs. Families can't afford groceries. Why can't we just talk about that? Why do we have to deal with all this like gender ideology stuff? And it's, I can understand why people get that way. Because if that's all you're bombarded with by all of our mainstream media outlets, it becomes frustrating that for a lot of people, they see the issues that they're facing in their life are not being addressed. And I think that it, like I was saying before, it's one of those situations that we need to tread very carefully, because it's like we cannot dismiss the real harm that is being done to these communities, and how often they're being subjected to the absolute worst parts of our society, while the issues that we face in our lives are obviously not any less real or not any less serious to us. We can't push aside our empathy for others. And I think that that's part of the goal of the culture war, is to make us desensitized to other people's suffering, so that they can really focus on, being able to pit us against one another, and make sure that we're so wound up and so angry at, this other group of people, that we're not able to see that we all have a united goal, and that we all have a united enemy, and that we would all benefit from working together. It's unfortunately capitalism's MO, and they're very effective at it. And I think like Gramsci said, these dual understandings of culture and how they reinforce economic systems, and economic systems then reinforce that culture, it just becomes what seems like a unstoppable cycle.
Yeah. So it's a part of the fight. I think I like your sort of discussion on the enemy. Like, who started this? Who starts a culture war? Who is perpetuating it? Because I think both sides, down on the ground, have different ideas of who is perpetuating the culture war. And there are maybe people who are correct and incorrect on all sides here, but who is it? Who's perpetuating this?
I mean, I think this is also something that we would want to tread carefully on, because it's like we don't want to make the accusation that some like cabal, is like pulling puppet strings.
We don't want to sound like the
Ryan
fucking
Massano.
Nazis were kicking out of town. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that like culture wars often take up a life of their own, right? And like that's whoever started it is almost inconsequential. Like it doesn't really matter. It matters how it is then picked up by people who have positions of power, and how they inflict that on those that don't, so to continue to marginalize and oppress them. So I think that it's more important to see how these particular facets of the culture war are used pit us against one another, and how they're used to keep groups that are already marginalized and oppressed in that position, than it is to try to like, and I do think that like,
well, it's like it's a meme. Before internet
is.
memes were a thing. Like
Yeah.
a meme is literally like an idea, behavior, or style that spreads by means of imitation from person to person, which within a culture, right? Like we are all sort of like palimpsests of the people around us, and we're always getting impressioned upon and putting our impressions upon them. And you're right, like the cause, the beginning, the spark of a culture war kind of means nothing after a while.
Yeah. And I think that, like, you know, people like Ryan Masano and the other pieces of shit like him, they get so caught up in the idea of like who caused it, right? That they can't help themselves but fall down these conspiratorial rabbit holes where, you know, there has to be a reason that this started. There has, you know, and there has to be someone who's pushing it, someone, and it's too obvious that it just works to uphold, it just works to uphold class domination, right? Like this, all of this works to uphold the distinctions between those who have and those who have not, right? And it's just, unfortunately, that fucking simple, right? But also it makes it, the solution, that much more complicated, right? Because if the solution for them is it's just this one person or this one group, and it's not just a massive class, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not this, you know, massive class solidarity movement for them, right? That then we can just work on this one group of people, right? Like, oh, it must be the Jewish people. It must be, you know, Black people working with Jewish people, and they're getting the queers to join them, and they're using the, you know, it's just like so fucking ridiculous.
Reading Masano's fucking feeds, my brain is broken. Like I've had to take days off from that shit.
I mean, if you read 70,000 pages about World War II, like anyone's brain would be broken.
Oh my God. Oh God. The telltale sign of someone who's definitely incredibly smart is when they say, I bet you haven't read 3 books on World War II outside of school. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Oh God. Oh
it's
God.
so fun.
I hope that he enjoys his summer break. I really do. I hope that he gets sunburned.
Ryan.
In his butthole.
I hope he gets laid. I hope he I hope he finds happiness outside of his zealotry.
I agree.
And maybe he'll stop wasting all of our time. No one cares. No one cares about you, man. Like, just go have fun. But he, you know, he's a warrior. He's a lion.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they've already won, remember?
They've already won.
Right.
I love that. I love the idea of somebody who's just got chased out of town
saying that they won.
I've already beat you. You just know. It's like
nothing makes me happier than those moments after, you know, like the Proud Boys make fools of themselves again, because they always do. Someone somewhere around Sacramento or Davis, you know, will fly one of those banners on the freeway, and it just keeps upping the number of like Antifa 4, Proud Boys 0. Like, so good.
But haha, you don't know. We meant to do that.
Right.
I meant to get punched out and have my little butt crack hanging out on this random sidewalk.
We trained them wrong on purpose.
Okay, well, let's round out this episode. You know, it is Pride Month, folks. So remember that, you know, you know somebody who is gay. You know someone who's bi. You know someone who's trans. You also know someone who's Italian. But they're all just, you know, maybe it's someone you love, but they're afraid to tell you. So think twice before you speak. I just wanted to use that Italian joke because it's been all Gramsci and you know. I
mean, there are some telltale signs, you know, they accidentally slip a Mamma Mia out occasionally. They like say,
yeah. I was talking to a friend about that, and they were like, you know, I don't know any Italians. I'm like, you do. I know this person, and they've been afraid to tell you they're Italian for fear of your response. And I said, when you're around them, I've been hearing it. Try not to drop a hard G when you say gabagool.
Oh God. They are poor, unfortunate people.
Yeah.
I've had Little Mermaid on my mind. It's like another part of the
Poor
culture war,
unfortunate
right?
souls.
Poor
That's
unfortunate
good.
souls. Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
so sad, yet true.
Oof, God.
But also with what you were saying, it is Pride Month, so do not
Yes.
deprive yourself of joy. There's plenty of great activities and all sorts of things that are going on this month. Be safe, enjoy yourself, fuck all these people, all these zealots and Nazi piss boy wannabes.
Yeah, punch
Fuck
these
'em all.
Nazis, but only
Fuck
if
'em
you
all.
feel safe. Make sure you're
Right.
you're able to.
Yes.
But there have been reports of like hate crimes here downtown. I'm sure some of you might have seen someone on Reddit posted about getting attacked after they left Bear Bar, which is that what it's called? Bear Bar?
Bear dive.
Bear Dive, yeah. And so really do be on the lookout. Make sure you get home with friends or get a Lyft or Uber home. But it is a time of joy. Pride is this weekend. It's going to be the 10th and 11th of June. There's going to be the parade. Headliner, listen, previous years of Pride, did we have some of the best headliners in the history, like gay icons like Lizzo? Yes. We have another gay icon in Rebecca Black of Friday fame. And we got to get down on Friday. So this Friday, folks, I hope you're blasting her song, the one that helped her make it big.
Is she a one-hit wonder? She only have that one?
Well, she did. She has a how do you put it? Like she actually has a singing part in a very popular song right now. I think it's called Yoga, where the guy's like, do a little yoga, do a dance.
Okay.
Like
so she's relevant.
She's the backup singer, and she also has her own like little portion of the song where she sings her own lyrics. But yeah, so she's around. She's trying to sort of redefine herself, and I think that's why she's able to headline something like Sac Pride. I don't think she's quite Lizzo status, like Lizzo.
Not at all.
Lizzo selling out Golden One Center now, but I think someday, Rebecca.
Yeah, don't let the haters get you down, right? I mean, that song is memorable for a reason, even if sometimes we get it stuck in our head to our own dismay.
You do got to get down on Friday.
Yeah,
she's not wrong. And what she also wasn't wrong about yesterday being Thursday and tomorrow being Saturday. Yeah. Those were great lyrics, I think.
I think that we might be missing an analysis of anti-capitalism in her song. The fetishization of Friday because you hate the work week, like she was going deeper. We just didn't get it.
Yeah. I think you're right. Which seed can I take? Their Bad Lip Reading did a fantastic bad lip reading of that song called Gang Fight. Go look that up.
I'm gonna look that up.
It's so good. All right, well let's round out the show. You've got some cornhole to play, I believe, and I've got some wine to drink.
Let's do it.
All right, bye folks. See you next month.